Hi everyone and welcome. This is Elena and I'm back today with a set of cards using the new Concord and 9th Aloha bundle, which consists of these papers that coordinate with the layering stencils. So there are four designs, and I can remember if there are 3 or 4 of each, but there are plenty and they're double-sided. So there's compared to the previous like when they last released something like this, I think it was back in March. Those are colored, so there's green, they're not black and white, and the green is just gorgeous. So I'm using my MISTI to position the stencil, and I'm using the magnets to hold that stencil in place. That way, if I don't need to place any tape or any washi and risk to tear my paper. So I'm using Hero Arts Tight Pull ink and mini ink blending tool to apply that ink to the flowers. So I'm just going, this is sped up, so I just made sure that it's nice and saturated color. When I was done with that, I removed the stencil and I placed the second layer and lined it up with the flowers beneath, and again secured that stencil using the magnets. And next I'm going with Antiqua Hero Art Shadow ink and applying that darker tone. So I'm just the second layer is going faster because it's less area to cover, because just adds highlights or shadows onto the flowers. So now I'm done, and there's the whole piece of paper. It's 6 by 6. Next, using my paper trimmer, I'll trim it to 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm using one of the Hero Arts pool note cards. I decided to go with the darkest one to adhere that panel onto it. But before I do that, I'll stamp some of the sentiments from the Aloha stamp sets that's coordinating. First, I'm going with the frame. So I'll line up the frame onto my panel. So I'm just trying to center it here. I'm using that transparency grid that I have. You can download it on mysweetpetunia.com under downloads, and then print it on some transparency. So I'm just making sure that everything is lined up and the edges are straight. Next, I apply some embossing powder, not powder, but the anti-static powder onto my panel, and I stamped with Versamark. Next, I'm using Hero Arts white embossing powder to cover that, and I'll heat set it. So I'm just making sure that it's covered nicely. And then using the Hero Arts embossing gun, I melted that embossing powder. Next, I'm going back with my mini MISTI, and I'll line up the sentiments where I want to be. I just wanted to say "You're a fabulous friend." So I line up that in the center, and next I'm playing with the other 2 sentiments where I want them to be. So I just decided to go unconventional way. I place those sideways. So I pick them up with the lid of the MISTI. Next, I'll apply that anti-static powder to my panel and stamp the sentiments with Versamark. And again, I'm using the white embossing powder to cover all the sentiments that I just stamped, and I'll heat set it with the heat tool. So now we're almost done. So we have that. I'm just trying how it will look with vellum on top. So I decided to not add the vellum. I'm just adding some black fun foam on the back and adhering it to my pull note card. So this card is finished, but I'm not done yet. I'll create another card using the white background papers, and I'll add vellum on top as an overlay on which I'll stamp the sentiment and the frame. So for this one, I decided to go with purple hues. So I'm again securing my stencil using the magnets, and I'll be using some sticky notes to mask those, because I'll be going with two different colors for the flowers. First, I'm using passion flower. Passion flower. I think that's I have listed all the supply that I used on the bottom of this post and in the description of the YouTube video. So I'm using for the large flowers, I'm using that passion fruit, and for the smaller flowers, I'm using Tide Pool, like the one that I used on the previous video, for the previous card. So I'm covering all the small flowers with that Tide Pool. So that the first layer is done. Next I'm securing the second stencil to add those shadows or highlights. I'm just securing it with the magnets, and then I'm again masking. I'm using Grape Juice Shadow Ink Pad and some makeup sponges I didn't like how it was positioned, so I just moved it a little bit, and next I'm applying the grape juice ink. And now for the small flowers, I'm going with Antiqua, and I'm applying that second layer to the smaller flowers. So just making sure that it's nice and covered. So here is the final result. And then that vellum will soften those bright flowers. So I'm cutting it down to, again, 4 by 5¼ Next, I'll cut the vellum to the same size, 5¼ by 4 inches. So I think that looked nice. Now I'm going back into my mini MISTI. I used the original MISTI for the stenciling, and I'm using the mini MISTI for the stamping. So I positioned that frame onto my panel and picked it up with the lid of the MISTI. And next I'm using Versamark to stamp that frame, and I'm using black embossing powder, Hero Arts black embossing powder, to emboss that frame. So for this step, it's very important to use that embossing buddy or the anti-static powder, because the black embossing powder, it tends to leave more kind of speckles around. They're more noticeable than the clear ones or the white ones. So first I picked up that UR, and the next sentiment I did the inspiring, and I'm repeating the same process, stamping those with Versamark, and I'll emboss them with black embossing powder. So just decided to stamp it one more time so I get nice black coverage with the embossing powder when it melts. So we have, I think that's good enough. So now I'll just heat set it really quickly. It is important that you have the heat tool, the heat gun, very nice and hot, so it doesn't really warp your vellum that much. So I'm adhering that panel using Fun Foam onto my card base. It's a Hero Arts note card. And next I'm using micro dots to adhere that vellum. I just applying the micro dots on the back where it's like the sentiment in the frame, so they're not noticeable when you look through the vellum. So the cards are done, and thanks for watching. See you soon in another video. And before I go, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my blog at elenacrouse.com. Thanks for watching. Bye!